Hello, I'm Naturalist Dave with Summit Metro Parks, and today we're here at Cascade Valley on the Oxbow Trail. I'd like to share with you some tips and tricks for winter tree ID. IDing trees in other seasons can be a little bit easier because you have flowers and leaves present. However, that's no reason not to try to do it during the colder months. Join me as we look at trees along the Oxbow Trail and focus on the bark, branches, and buds of these beautiful species. Let's get started with our hike. Our first stop on the Oxbow Trail is next to our American elm tree. Now, American elm trees, once giants of the forest, have suffered greatly due to Dutch elm disease decimating their populations. However, in Summit Metro Parks, you can still see some standing this tall. Now, as you're looking at this tree, notice this gray to brownish bark. It's fissured, has a nice texture to it, and really the dead giveaway on this bark is it has a spongy cork-like texture. So as you gently touch it, because we don't want to damage the tree, you can push it and it feels corky, much like a pin board that you might use in an office. Now, as you're looking for twigs and branches and buds on these trees, you're gonna look up because there's none too low here. Look for zigzag patterns, smooth brown twigs. Sometimes the buds are a little hairy, but generally they're the same color and look as those twigs. Great tree. Let's move on. Our next tree is this beautiful black walnut. And notice it's growing alongside the gorgeous Cuyahoga River. That leads me to believe that this tree does not mind growing in a wetter soil. And as you can tell by looking down, the soil seems to be a little wetter. Anyways, onto the bark. Notice this beautiful silver-tinged brown bark, roughly fissured. And as you look closely and observe, you'll notice diamond patterns within that fissured bark. And if you can find a spot where the bark has been chipped away, please don't chip it away yourself as that could injure the tree. You'll notice under this top layer of bark, a beautiful layer of darker brown bark. As you look up to the branches, you'll notice stout brown branches. And if you can see closely, the buds are going to be gray and downy, a little hairy, and usually they're very prominent at the tips of those branches. And one cool thing to note, black walnuts engage in something that we call allelopathy, or chemical warfare. They release a chemical in the soil that inhibits the growth of other species of plants. Wow. All right, let's move on. We've made it up the hill from the river, and now we see some of the sentinels of our forests here in Summit County. Check out this white oak tree. You'll notice right away a gray to ashy brown bark color. Now this bark can be plated, blocky, scaly, all of the above, and sometimes you'll even find smooth patches on older trees. So as you look at a white oak, in all trees for that matter, make sure you look in front of you, you look down, and you look up. And this tree is a great example of one that you'll see major changes in the bark as you go from down to up. If you have a chance to check out the branches, you'll notice they're smooth, reddish brown, even purplish at times, and you'll find round buds that are clustered at the terminal or the points of those twigs. Again, white oak, beautiful, tall tree in our forest. One thing to note, prized for their wood, for making furniture and other carpentry projects. And because the pores are naturally sealed, they also use these in whiskey and wine barrels. All right, let's move on. As we continue down the Oxbow Trail, we've reached our next tree, the black cherry. Notice these irregularly patterned scaly plates this brown to black bark has. That's a dead giveaway you're looking at a black cherry. However, if this was a young tree, it would actually have smooth bark with prominent lenticels raised on it, lenticels being gas exchange pores. As the tree gets older, however, it gives way to this pattern of bark. Now, as you look up, if you can see branches, you'll notice smoother bark with raised lenticels once again. and the buds are fairly small with a few scales on them. A beautiful tree prized for its wood. Black cherry is also home to many caterpillar species in the spring. The next tree we're looking at on our journey looks similar to one that we saw before, the black walnut. However, this is not a black walnut tree. This is a sassafras tree. Now you'll notice similarly furrowed bark, interlaced and very rigid, a brown color as well. However, the underbark of the sassafras tree, which you can find in open patches, remember we do not peel our trees, is an orange cinnamon color versus that dark brown you see on the black walnut. Now look up, and if you can see a branch or a twig on this tree, you'll notice young twigs are bright green, smooth and shiny. As they age, they turn red. The buds on this tree are about 1/4 inch long and green. So look for those key characteristics. One interesting note, sassafras trees used to be used in the production of root beer. However, due to issues found by the FDA, they have since stopped using it. Anyways, an excellent tree all around. All right, let's move on. Our next tree on the Oxbow Trail that we're gonna check out is perhaps the easiest to identify from the bark. Notice this thin, mottled brown scaly bark. Well, as this tree matures, it gives way to this beautiful camouflaged patterned green and white bark that regularly exfoliates or comes off the tree. As you look up the tree for branches, notice zigzag patterns. Young branches tend to be green and hairy, smooth and brown as they age, and look for red buds on the lateral parts of those branches because the tips of the branches, the buds are absent. And one thing to note is science is still out as to why this tree bark exfoliates. One hypothesis is that it may help prevent predation or parasites and fungus taking hold underneath the bark. Fascinating. The final tree we'll look at on our walk today is a big tooth aspen. Now this tree combines several different types of bark features that we've seen. Notice the light gray to white colored bark. We have fissures on the lower bark here. As you move up the tree, you'll start to notice smoother bark. And in addition to that, we also have horizontal bumps running along parts of this tree. Wow, what a combination. As you look up into the tree, you'll notice branches are yellowish to white. They have a pretty straight growth pattern, and buds are gonna be reddish brown with a point. Big tooth aspen, truly a unique tree in these woods. And one thing to note, a favorite food of beavers. Let's finish off this hike. Thank you for joining me on the Oxbow Trail today in Cascade Valley Metro Park. For more information on the trees on this trail, check out fellow naturalist Becca's article, Bark Along the Bank, which you can find a link to in the description below this video. And for more information on all things park related, including where you might visit next, check out our website, summitmetroparks.org. All right, folks, have a great day.